How did Darth Vader meet Luke Skywalker for the first time? One question asked by many is how Vader met Luke for the very first time. We see the two of them have a brief connection in A New Hope, but not really a face-to-face interaction. Well, luckily, this was explained in the 2015 Star Wars Marvel Comics issues 1 through 3, and let's just say the interaction between the two of them might surprise you a little bit. Let's get right into it. Shortly after the events of A New Hope, Luke, Chewbacca, Han, Leia, C-3PO, and R2-D2 all go on a mission together to infiltrate an Imperial weapons factory. Their goal from this was to take out the entire factory, but as they began to move throughout the facility, Luke started to sense a disturbance in the Force. He started to follow his instincts when all of a sudden, it led him to finding multiple slaves all trapped within cages. The slave owner went to attack Luke when all of a sudden he ignited his lightsaber and sliced his hand right off. Luke was then able to free all the slaves, but then out of nowhere, an Imperial shuttle arrived. This shuttle belonged to no other than Darth Vader. Vader stormed in and sensed Luke's presence right away. To try and buy his friend's time, Chewbacca saw Vader from up above and began to use his bowcaster to try and shoot him down. Vader quickly reacted and used his own stormtroopers as shields to block his fire. He then force crushed the area around Chewbacca, making Chewbacca jump and flee away. He then informed his troopers to hunt Chewbacca down and then entered the facility. Meanwhile, back at the facility, Han, Luke, and Leia were all trapped in there under red alert trying to hold off multiple stormtroopers. Luckily, they were able to escape the fight and found an Imperial walker right in front of them that they then stole to take over. But as they began to enter the walker, Leia noticed that Luke was missing. Luke felt a tremor and began to sense Vader's presence nearby. He then tried communicating to Obi-Wan Kenobi, telling him that he needed to face him. Obi-Wan told him not to fight him and instead, run. This of course being because Luke was not trained yet and wasn't ready to face this challenge. After Obi-Wan's words to him, Luke then turned around when all of a sudden, Darth Vader stood right before him. The two then looked upon each other closely for the first time, face to face. Luke began to have anger towards Vader, saying that he killed his father and that he killed Obi-Wan. He then rushed to strike at him when Vader quickly knocked him off his feet, pushing him down and taunting him, calling him pathetic. Vader then pulled his lightsaber and telling Luke what a horrible master Obi-Wan was and that the Force will never be with him. He then crossed both lightsabers together the same way he did when he killed Count Dooku in Revenge of the Sith. He then went to strike Luke down when all of a sudden, he froze. This lightsaber, he recognized it. This was once... The hijacked Imperial walker crashed right in and interrupted their fight. Vader with both lightsabers started to throw them at multiple prisoners, stabbing them right in the chest, killing them one by one. Han and Leia, both in the walker, found Vader and tried to step the walker right over him. Vader saw this and used the Force to grab the walker and started to crush it right from his hand. His anger, his rage, it all began to consume him. Although the walker was being crushed, Han and Leia were still able to fire off multiple shots on Vader, which led it to causing destruction all around him and for his former lightsaber to fall out of his hand. Luke noticed the lightsaber fall and while on a speeder, quickly swooped it right up and started to make his way towards the Millennium Falcon in order to escape. Meanwhile, after the events of the walker crashing, an injured Vader begins to pick himself up from the damage. Struggling to get up, a stormtrooper freezes because he notices that Vader's helmet was off. Was he really looking upon the face of the Dark Lord of the Sith? With no hesitation, Vader quickly snapped this trooper's neck and killed him instantly. He then pulled his helmet back to him and returned to the battlefield, telling his troopers to kill everyone in sight, except for the boy. Vader wanted to take Luke on himself. Meanwhile, as Luke got closer to the Falcon, he began to swiftly cut through enemy lines on his speeder. During their fight, Vader began to get closer and closer to them when he then approached the walker of Han, Leia, and the rest of the rebels. He then ignited his lightsaber and sliced one of the legs of the walker, leading it to collapsing right to the ground. Luke, witnessing this, quickly dove in to save his friends, and in order to help them escape, he informed them to leave and told them that he couldn't allow this fight to be for nothing. He then took off on his speeder with Vader closely trailing him on a ship. In the pursuit against him, Luke blasted his way into the facility, shooting down the power core and causing a massive destruction to the factory. Vader, relentless, continued to fire at Luke's speeder, and it led to Luke believing that these would be his final moments. He began to whisper to himself and apologize to his father, saying that he's sorry that he'll never be the Jedi he once was. As the facility was collapsing, Luke was able to escape just in time and fled away. Vader then appeared from the wreckage and watched as Luke escaped with the others aboard the Millennium Falcon. Filled with anger, Vader then spoke as if he was speaking directly to Obi-Wan, telling him that although Luke was strong in the Force, there was no one left to train him. He then walked away with his last words, saying that the dark side will always win and that Luke would eventually become his weapon as his apprentice. I really enjoyed this comic, and I think this story really motivates Vader more and more to find out the true identity of who Luke really is. There's so much that happens between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back that we aren't really able to see on screen, and this comic is a prime example of that. Tomorrow we'll dive further into the story, and let's just say it only gets better and better. I hope you enjoyed the video, thank you for watching, and may the Force be with you always.